experience and name recognition increases a candidate's chances of winning an election.
So too does the quality of a candidate's voice, and for many, the strain of the presidential campaign is audible.
UW speech pathologist Kathe McConville has some advice about how to combat hoarseness that we can all use.
I listen to the candidates. Not a single one of them sounds crystal clear at this point, and I think that's got to be due in large part to their vocal demands. You think about how the human voice works. These candidates are talking all day, every day. As they talk, their vocal folds vibrate probably for them between 100 and 250 times a second, on and off as they're talking. So throughout the day, that really adds up. Then you add things like how loudly they're talking, how much effort they're putting into using as they voice, some other biological factors and behavioral factors, and you've got the recipe for voice problems.
Yeah, a lot of big rallies where they're yelling almost, and that's very hard on the vocal cords.
Yes, and we know there's a phenomenon called the Lombard effect. So if you're in a noisy environment, you're going to get louder in accordance with the environment around you. So it's important to dampen that if you can as you're a candidate and you're listening to the volume get louder and louder and realizing you're getting louder with them.
Let's run down the candidates. Let's start with Hillary Clinton.
And let's finally guarantee equal pay for women's work, which is one of the fastest ways to grow incomes.
Hillary Clinton, she's been rough for a while now. As all of the candidates go, she probably has the highest speaking pitch of any of them. But when we listen perceptually to where most women's voices sit, she's on the lower end of typical. That in and of itself isn't a bad thing, but it sounds like she's working really hard to keep it there. So you add that to her speaking style. When she gives a speech, she's a very passionate speaker, and she delivers a lot of her speeches at a higher or intense volume. And we know that speaking loudly over a prolonged period of time is potentially damaging to your vocal folds if it's not done efficiently, and you can't keep it up for a long period of time if you're speaking really loudly.
I've heard her mention on the campaign trail that she eats hot peppers and that it helps her throat, which I had never heard before. Do you ever hear that before?
I hear a lot of things. I'm not sure I'd encourage eating hot peppers.
That's what she said, honestly, yeah.
It might induce a reflux event, which could irritate her throat and make her even more vulnerable to vocal injury.
That's a good point. What about her competitor, Bernie Sanders?
And it must be a speech which will open up the eyes of the world.
Bernie is, well, of all of the candidates, many of them are advanced age. Bernie is the oldest candidate of the group. And one of the features I hear in his voice is a breathiness or an airiness. Now that could be his style of speaking, but it could also be an age-related voice change. And I couldn't know without seeing him in the clinic, but when I listen to him, I can hear air escaping, and I hear a strained voice quality as well. So we add those two factors together, working hard to possibly compensate for some thinning vocal folds that let a little extra air through, and now we've got a huge voice problem. Is that
in Bernie's words. How about Donald Trump, speaking of huge?
I said, make America great again. I said, make America great again. And I copyrighted the term.
Donald Trump. So he has a voice that is not as hoarse as some of the other candidates, but it's not crystal clear either. When I listen to it, it doesn't sit forward in the front of the face. It sits a little farther back in the neck. It doesn't travel very easily to the front of his facial bones where we can hear it. But he's not as hoarse as some of the candidates, and I've wondered why this could be. And I'm only half joking when I say it could be the way he holds his mouth when he talks.
Really?
What do you mean by that?
In the voice clinic, we have some of our patients do exercises that we call semi-occluded vocal tract tests. They can range from blowing sound through a straw in a cup or making bubbling sounds with your lips. But one of the things I'll have patients do to take strain off of their vocal folds and make voicing easier is to hold their lips in sort of a Trump pout while they're voicing. So who knows?
Interesting. Isn't that interesting? Now, what about Ted Cruz? A lot of people have said his voice has held up remarkably well so far.
It has.
It's a very sad development, and this is the consequence of the culture of the Trump campaign.
I think out of all of the candidates, he has the clearest voice of anyone right now. I have had a lot of people comment that they don't like the sound quality of his voice. They think he sounds nasally, and they find that an annoying quality. I can't comment on that, but I think that may be what is saving his voice. That quality suggests that the sound is traveling fairly easily from his vocal folds up through the throat without a lot of obstruction or strain, where it can resonate pretty easily in the front of his face. And that's a healthy production method. In addition, when I watch him speak, he really takes advantage of his amplification. Unlike some of the other speakers, he's quite close to his microphone. He'll often opt to use a handheld mic or have his microphone directly on his face, where he's not straining to be heard over noise or working too much to project. He's really letting the microphone do that for him.
Finally, John Kasich.
There are many people who are at risk if we don't have somebody that can unite the country.
Kasich, okay. So I haven't heard his voice as much in the media, and I don't know if that's because he's not being covered as much or he's not speaking as much. So potentially not speaking as much could be a conservation method, but it's probably not a good political strategy. When I listen to him, though, he's holding up pretty well. The voice sounds strong. It's not the clearest or the most resonant or forward voice. But he doesn't speak at a very loud volume most of the time, and I think that may help. And I've also noticed he takes breaths frequently when he talks. So he doesn't talk on an empty gas tank. He really fills up and lets his respiratory system support him as he's talking, and I think that's a healthy strategy too.
All right, Kate. Thanks for being with us. Interesting.
Thank you.